20 forgotten dinners from the 1970s that have faded into history. Ever wonder what dinner looked like before DoorDash and microwave meals? Back in the 1970s, dinner wasn't just food, it was a reflection of the times. Some dishes were born out of love, others out of necessity, and many have quietly vanished. Today, we're digging into 20 forgotten dinners that once brought families together across America. Let's delve right in. Potato pancakes. There's something about the scent of sizzling potatoes in a pan that can pull you straight back to childhood. I still remember my grandmother standing by the stove on Sunday afternoons, apron dusted with flour, carefully pressing potato pancakes into a cast-iron skillet. We didn't have much, but those crisp-edged patties felt like a feast. They weren't just food, they were her way of turning hardship into comfort. Back in the 1970s, many families knew what it meant to stretch a dollar, and potatoes were the hero ingredient of the times. Not only were they cheap, but they could be grown in backyard gardens, traded between neighbors, or pulled from a root cellar long after harvest. And when meat was scarce or bills piled high, folks turned to what they had on hand: shredded spuds, a little onion, maybe an egg, and created something hearty, golden, and unforgettable. While cookbooks of the era overflowed with budget-friendly ideas, few recipes were as adaptable or satisfying as the humble potato pancake. More than a meal, it was a lesson in resilience, proof that even in the toughest years, a hot pan and a handful of potatoes could still bring people together. Hog Maw. Have you ever sat at a dinner table, looked down at your plate and thought, "What in the world is this? And why does it smell so good?" That was me at age 10, staring wide-eyed at a slice of hog maw, a dish my great-aunt Ruth swore could cure any bad mood or empty stomach. I didn't know then that I was eating a pig's stomach stuffed with potatoes, onions, and sausage. I just knew it was warm, rich, and tasted like home. Back in the 60s and 70s, when money was tight and waste wasn't an option, hog maw was the kind of meal that made sense. It was hearty, cheap, and made use of every part of the animal. No frills, no fancy cuts, just old-school practicality. Particularly loved in Pennsylvania Dutch country, this dish also found cousins in kitchens around the world, from Vietnamese markets to southern soul food cookouts. Sure, it's not something you'd serve on a silver platter today, but back then, hog maw was a symbol of survival and pride. It reminded folks that with a little creativity, and maybe a strong stomach, you could turn almost anything into something worth sharing. Fried chicken livers. There was a time in this country when nothing from a chicken went to waste, not even the parts folks today might wrinkle their noses at. Fried chicken livers were a staple in small-town kitchens, especially throughout the South and Midwest, where thrift wasn't a lifestyle choice, it was survival. Long before supermarkets overflowed with boneless breasts and ready-made meals, families knew how to make the most of what they had, and that meant turning humble ingredients into something worth remembering. Chicken livers were cheap, packed with protein, and could feed a hungry household without stretching the wallet. They hit the pan with a sizzle after a soak in milk or salt water, a trick passed down through generations to tame that strong, minerally flavor. Coated in seasoned flour or cornmeal and fried until golden, they came out crisp on the outside, creamy inside, and full of bold character. What made them truly special, though, was their adaptability. Every region had its own twist, whether marinated in buttermilk, dressed with hot sauce, or nestled into a biscuit. Fried chicken livers weren't just food. They were proof that working-class cooking, at its best, could be both honest and unforgettable. Hot water, cornbread. Golden edges crackled gently in the skillet as the scent of cornmeal filled the kitchen with a kind of peace no recipe book could teach. Hot water cornbread wasn't flashy or fancy, but in the South, especially through the 1970s, it was a beloved companion to nearly every meal. Born from modest pantries and passed down by memory, it stood as a quiet symbol of resilience. The method was simple: almost meditative. Stir cornmeal with boiling water until it thickens into a stiff, steaming dough. Some added a dash of salt, others a touch of sugar if it was on hand. Then, with practiced hands, the mixture was patted into rustic cakes, no measuring cups, no fuss, and dropped into hot oil or lard, where it browned to perfection with a soft, hearty middle. Families served it alongside collard greens, black-eyed peas, fried chicken, whatever they could pull together that day. And while corn-based breads often carried the stigma of poverty to those who grew up on them, they told a different story, one of creativity, culture, and care. Hot water cornbread wasn't just food. It was pride, pressed by hand and fried with love. What dish from your childhood always makes you feel nostalgic, even if it wasn't fancy? Fried chicken patties. Who else remembers sprinting to the lunch line just to snag the last fried chicken patty? Back in middle school, that golden hockey puck was pure cafeteria gold. I'll never forget the day I traded my fruit cup and a pencil top eraser just to get my friend's extra patty. Totally worth it. By the early 1980s, fried chicken patties had claimed their throne in school lunchrooms across America. Designed to mimic the crisp, familiar bite of fast food, they were a hit with kids who knew good flavor when they tasted it. Made from ground chicken mixed with seasoning, formed into perfect little rounds, then breaded and fried until crunchy outside and juicy inside. They were easy to prep, easy to serve, and even easier to devour. Cafeteria workers loved them because they were efficient. Mix, shape, fry, done. Students loved them because they felt like a fast food treat in the middle of a school day. Served solo or tucked in a soft bun with a side of crinkle fries, they turned an ordinary lunch into something to look forward to. More than just a meal, they became a lunchtime legend, the unofficial currency of cafeteria trades and the star of countless childhood memories. Egg drop soup. Steam curled like soft ribbon above a chipped ceramic bowl, catching the light as if time itself had slowed down. In that moment, sometime in the early 1970s, egg drop soup wasn't just a dish, it was a quiet revelation. While much of American cooking still revolved around casseroles and canned convenience, this simple Chinese staple arrived like a whisper from another world. With clear broth gently seasoned in soy sauce, white pepper, and a trace of sesame oil, the magic happened in a single motion. Ribbons of beaten egg stirred slowly into the heat, creating delicate threads that floated like silk. Served hot, quick, and affordable, it offered a balance of comfort and curiosity, light enough to soothe, rich enough to satisfy. As America's taste buds began to expand beyond the familiar, egg drop soup became one of the first bridges between East and West. It showed up in small-town Chinese takeouts, university cafeterias, and even home kitchens, trying something new. And though it's now as common as ketchup in many places, its quiet impact on 1970s food culture was profound, a gentle invitation into global flavors, served one spoonful at a time. Oysters Rockefeller. Is it really a fancy dinner party if someone doesn't whisper, "Wait, are those oysters?" Few dishes conjure up old-school glamour quite like Oysters Rockefeller, a name that practically demands a bow tie and a flute of champagne. Long before small plates and fusion menus took over, this was the height of culinary sophistication. First created in 1899 at the legendary Antoine's in New Orleans, the dish was named not for its ingredients, but for its richness, a playful nod to John D. Rockefeller, the wealthiest man in America at the time. The original recipe? Still a closely guarded secret. But most versions featured plump oysters nestled in their half shells, topped with a luscious mix of butter, breadcrumbs, chopped greens, usually spinach, and often a hint of licorice-like liqueur. Once assembled, they were broiled just until the topping crackled to golden perfection, creating a contrast between the silky oyster and the crisp, herbaceous crust. Served on a bed of rock salt, with flickering candles and soft jazz in the background. They weren't just food, they were theater. In the 1970s, Oysters Rockefeller stood as a symbol of refined taste and timeless luxury, a forgotten masterpiece from the golden age of American dining. Creamed spinach. Steam rose from the dinner table as the smell of something buttery and faintly nutty drifted through the kitchen, the kind of smell that meant it was time to sit down, hold hands, and say grace. Creamed spinach was never the star of the meal, but somehow it always brought a sense of quiet comfort. I still remember my little sister wrinkling her nose at the sight of anything green, until one bite of that velvety dish changed her mind for good. In the 1970s, creamed spinach found its way into school cafeterias and home kitchens alike, offering a clever way to get children, and sometimes adults, to eat their greens without complaint. The spinach, whether fresh from the garden or pulled from the freezer, was wilted gently, then folded into a sauce made with milk, butter, and a touch of flour. A pinch of nutmeg or garlic added a subtle depth that balanced the earthiness. Served warm, its rich, creamy texture gave the leafy vegetable a makeover, turning something simple into something cozy. Beyond its flavor, it quietly packed in nutrients like iron and vitamin A, becoming both a childhood memory and a quiet hero of the retro dinner plate. Shepherd's pie. Do you remember when a single casserole dish could feed the whole family and still leave enough for tomorrow? Back in the day, especially in blue-collar households, that wasn't just convenience, it was a way of life. Shepherd's pie, hearty and humble, wasn't about impressing dinner guests. It was about stretching leftovers into something that felt like a fresh, home-cooked meal. Traditionally made with lamb in its original British form, the American version leaned heavily on ground beef, or whatever meat happened to be left over from Sunday supper. Toss in a handful of vegetables, pour on some gravy, and crown it with a thick layer of mashed potatoes. Into the oven it went, bubbling and browning until the edges crisped up just right. This dish became a quiet hero in kitchens across the country, especially in the 1970s, when rising prices made frugality a necessity. More than just a meat and potatoes classic, it stood for something larger, a deep-rooted tradition of using what you had and wasting nothing. Shepherd's pie wasn't just dinner, it was thrift, comfort, and cleverness baked into one. And in many ways, it's a dish that still reminds us how creativity often begins with constraint. Click like if you remember any of these dinners, and subscribe for more stories from the good old days. Sloppy Joes. By the time the lunch bell rang, you already knew what kind of day it was, just by the smell drifting through the school hallways, tangy, sweet, and unmistakably sloppy. Sloppy Joes weren't elegant, but they didn't need to be. They were loud, saucy, and just messy enough to feel like rebellion in a bun. This beloved American sandwich became a staple in school cafeterias starting in the mid-20th century, peaking in popularity during the 1970s and 80s. The recipe was simple but satisfying. Ground beef sautéed with onions and garlic, simmered in a tomato-based sauce spiked with a dash of Worcestershire, a sprinkle of sugar, and maybe a few secret ingredients depending on who was stirring the pot. Served on a soft hamburger bun, which was often no match for the juicy filling. Sloppy Joes were a lunchroom legend. They could be made in big batches, held warm without drying out, and dished out quickly to crowds of hungry kids. But beyond convenience, they brought a certain joy, a break from rigid routines, a reason to grab an extra napkin, and a reminder that even in the most ordinary settings, something simple could still be downright delicious. Macaroni with butter and salt. Can you still picture the glow of the TV reflecting off a chipped kitchen bowl late on a school night? That's how I remember it. A quiet moment, the house dim except for the screen, and a warm plate of buttered macaroni resting in my lap like a reward for making it through the day. In the 1970s, not every meal needed to be fancy to feel special. For many working and middle-class families, The grocery budget had to stretch, and time was always running thin. But pasta was affordable, filling and comforting in all the right ways. A simple pot of macaroni, drained and dressed with a pat of butter and a sprinkle of salt, could calm the stomach and the spirit at once. No fancy sauces, no expensive cheese, just the essentials. It was the kind of dish even a tired kid could make alone, which made it all the more endearing. And while it might not have impressed dinner guests, it held a quiet place of honor in everyday life. Sometimes it's the meals that cost the least that stick with us the longest. Macaroni with butter and salt wasn't just food, it was reassurance in the simplest form possible. Hamburger gravy on bread. The scent of sizzling beef and onions in a well-worn skillet once signaled something simple but deeply satisfying. Dinner was almost ready. In kitchens where every dollar was stretched and nothing went to waste, hamburger gravy on bread was more than a meal. It was a practical kind of comfort. The method was humble. Ground beef, browned until the edges crisped just slightly, became the heart of the dish. Leftover vegetables, whatever was in the icebox or garden, were tossed in for depth and nourishment. Then came the roux, made with a spoonful of flour stirred into the pan's savory drippings, thickening the mixture into a rich, spoon-coating gravy. When ladled generously over slices of soft white bread, it transformed into something far greater than the sum of its parts. It was filling, warm, and ready in minutes, ideal for school lunches, quick suppers, or feeding a crowd on tight means. Especially during the leaner years of the 1970s, meals like this didn't just save money, they offered a sense of stability. Hamburger gravy on bread may have looked modest, but to many families, it tasted like survival, ingenuity, and love served on a plate. Beans on toast. The morning sun filtered through thin kitchen curtains, casting soft shadows over a plate of beans piled on toast, humble, hearty, and quietly dignified. In homes where the day started before dawn and ended long after dark, this meal held its own kind of poetry. Beans on toast may sound modest, but in the 1970s, especially across the working-class South, it was a morning ritual rooted in necessity. Canned beans were cheap, filling, and dependable. Bread was often homemade or bought day-old from the corner store. Butter, milk, even sugar. Those were luxuries saved for Sunday. I still remember watching my father slather warm baked beans over a thick slice of toast, handing me a fork before heading out to the fields. It was no-frills fuel, the kind of breakfast that filled you up and stuck with you. Beyond its practicality, though, this dish carried meaning. It told the story of families who made do, who worked hard, and who refused to waste a thing. In a way, it was a quiet declaration of pride. Though it rarely graces modern menus, beans on toast remains a nostalgic symbol, not of poverty, but of perseverance, and of a time when simplicity was a virtue, not a compromise. How many of these forgotten dinners have you actually tried? Let us know in the comments. Cheesy ham and broccoli casserole. Was there ever a casserole dish big enough to survive a church potluck without someone sneaking seconds? If you grew up in the 70s or 80s, chances are you've crossed paths with the cheesy ham and broccoli casserole. A dish so rich, so bubbly, it deserved its own holiday. This creamy concoction became a household favorite, not just for its flavor, but for its magical ability to feed a crowd with barely any fuss. Chopped ham and tender broccoli were folded into a velvety cheese sauce, often bulked up with a can of condensed soup. Because let's face it, every kitchen had a few stashed in the pantry. Then came the topping, buttery breadcrumbs or crushed crackers that baked into a golden crust no one could resist. I still remember my aunt showing up to family dinners with that same faded Pyrex dish, the cheese bubbling over the sides like it was trying to escape. It wasn't fancy, but it felt special, like something made with love and just a little improvisation. Cheesy ham and broccoli casserole was more than a meal. It was a shining example of retro resourcefulness, a one-pan wonder that turned simple ingredients into something everyone looked forward to, even if it meant fighting over the last scoop. Pork neck bones with rice. The slow simmer of pork neck bones on the stove was more than just a sound. It was a rhythm, a heartbeat echoing through kitchens built on strength and sacrifice. In many African American households, especially throughout the South, this dish wasn't just sustenance, it was legacy on a plate. Neck bones weren't found in high-end butcher displays, but they were found in homes where people knew how to stretch a dollar without sacrificing flavor. Often overlooked by the wealthy, these cuts were full of collagen, marrow, and soul. Perfect for long, slow cooking that coaxed every bit of goodness from the bone. In the 1970s, pork neck bones paired with rice became a staple for working-class families across America. It was affordable, filling, and deeply rooted in the waste-nothing philosophy that shaped so much of Southern cooking. With onions, garlic, and a few spices, the meat turned tender, falling apart into a rich, savory gravy that soaked beautifully into a mound of white rice. This dish told stories, not just of poverty, but of perseverance, resourcefulness, and flavor born from necessity. Pork neck bones with rice is more than forgotten food. Its heritage passed from pot to plate, generation after generation. Hoppin John. What better way to welcome a new year than with a bowl full of luck and hope? In Southern kitchens, that's exactly what Hoppin John offered. Not just a meal, but a blessing served warm, one spoonful at a time. This humble yet deeply meaningful dish has long been tied to tradition, especially in African American and Low Country heritage. Made with black-eyed peas, rice, and seasoned pork, often ham hock, sausage, or fatback, it was a one-pot wonder that brought comfort and symbolism to the table. The peas stood for coins, the greens served alongside symbolized paper money, and the cornbread, golden as the sun, represented wealth itself. Cooked low and slow with onions, garlic, and a touch of spice, Hoppin John was meant to nourish, stretch, and most of all, bring in prosperity. It wasn't about fancy presentation, it was about soul, community, and good fortune passed down through generations. Though it may not hold the same spotlight as other holiday dishes today, its legacy still lingers. In every simmering pot, you'll find a story, one of resilience, ritual, and the deep belief that a simple meal could shape the days ahead for the better. Rice with soy sauce. In a kitchen lit by the soft hum of a single bulb, the gentle clink of a spoon stirring soy sauce into a bowl of warm rice spoke louder than words ever could. No frills, no garnish, just nourishment, quietly filling both body and soul. During the 1970s, as American families adjusted to inflation, fast food, and shifting cultural tides, rice with soy sauce emerged as both a comfort and a revelation. For Asian immigrant households, it was a continuation of what they already knew, that simplicity didn't mean lack. For others, it was an introduction to a new way of eating, shaped by migration, adaptation, and neighborhood exchange. This pairing owed much of its rise to the influence of Asian American communities, whose culinary traditions began to shape the national palate after immigration policies loosened in the mid-1960s. Rice was affordable and versatile. Soy sauce added instant depth. Together, they offered a warm, budget-friendly alternative in a decade increasingly defined by processed shortcuts. Though it may seem unremarkable today, rice with soy sauce once represented the quiet merging of cultures, a dish that required little but delivered much, and reminded us that flavor often lives in the simplest things we pass down. Pickle sandwiches. Who needs avocado toast when you've got 2 slices of bread and a pickle in the middle, right? Back in the 1970s, no one was chasing trendy lunch hacks or posting sandwich selfies. Food wasn't about flair. It was about getting by, and pickle sandwiches did just that. This bare-bones lunch was common among working-class folks who had more month than money. Pickles were cheap, lasted forever, and packed just enough tang to distract from the fact that, well, there wasn't much else on the plate. Toss one between two slices of white bread, maybe a swipe of mustard if payday had come, and you had yourself a meal. Of course, it wasn't considered quirky or health-conscious like it might be today. Back then, it was a quiet signal that someone was scraping by, rationing resources, skipping the meat, and doing what they could with what they had. But it was also a symbol of ingenuity and resilience, wrapped in wax paper and eaten on factory floors, in schoolyards, or inside a parked truck. Though the pickle sandwich has mostly faded from modern menus, its memory lingers, a tart, crunchy bite of the past that reminds us how simplicity once carried more weight than presentation ever could. Vienna sausages and crackers. If you grew up in the 70s, chances are you knew the sound of a Vienna sausage can opening almost as well as the jingle of the ice cream truck. These little meat logs, short, pale, and swimming in salty broth, were the unsung heroes of the lunchbox and the lunch break alike. They weren't glamorous, but that was never the point. In a decade when convenience reigned and time was always in short supply, Vienna sausages stepped up as the ultimate quick fix. Toss them on some saltines, mash them into bread with a squeeze of mustard, or fry them up if you were feeling fancy. They'd still be ready in under 5 minutes. Their appeal lay in their predictability. You knew what you were getting: soft texture, savory flavor, and enough sodium to fuel a factory shift. Whether eaten cold straight from the tin or dressed up like mini hot dogs, they were a staple in homes, lunchboxes, and glove compartments. Sure, they've fallen out of favor in today's age of organic everything, but back then, Vienna sausages were survival food with a side of nostalgia, a modest meal that made no promises, yet never let you down. Powdered mashed potatoes. Back in the days when dinner had to be on the table before the 6 o'clock news, powdered mashed potatoes became a quiet revolution. They didn't come from Grandma's garden, but from the pantry, in a box sealed in foil, promising comfort without the chore. Born out of necessity, these instant spuds had humble beginnings in military kitchens and relief programs designed for speed, storage, and scale. But by the 1970s, they had worked their way into everyday American life, thanks to brands like Hungry Jack and Idahoan, who turned powdered starch into something surprisingly satisfying. For families juggling long hours, tight budgets, and hungry kids, these flakes were a lifesaver. Just add hot water and a splash of milk, stir until smooth, maybe toss in some butter, garlic, or cheese, and there you had it. A bowl of warmth, ready in minutes. Sure, they lacked the rustic charm of hand-mashed potatoes, but they had their own kind of magic, convenience without guilt. They were proof that even in an era chasing shortcuts, people still craved that familiar taste of home. Soft, buttery, dependable, served with a side of practicality and a dash of 1970s optimism. In times of scarcity, our grandparents knew how to make the most out of what little they had. Their kitchen creativity not only filled bellies, but also birthed some unique, delicious sandwiches. These 20 forgotten poor man's sandwiches may sound unusual today, but they were essential meals during the Depression, wartime, and beyond. Let's dive into these nostalgic bites. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich is now a classic childhood favorite, but it started as a practical and affordable protein source. First appearing in cookbooks around 1901, it became a Depression-era staple when peanut butter provided inexpensive protein and homemade jellies preserved seasonal fruit. During World War II, both peanut butter and jelly were part of military rations, and returning soldiers helped make the combination popular across the country. The genius of the PB&J lies in its simple completeness: sweet and salty, creamy and fruity, with protein and carbs all in one sandwich. To make the most of limited supplies, families spread peanut butter all the way to the edges, saving the jelly for the center. Over time, regional variations popped up: grape jelly in the Northeast, strawberry preserves in the South, and apple butter in Appalachia, each reflecting the local fruits available during hard times. What started as a practical meal became a beloved comfort food, with a history as rich as its flavor. The mayonnaise and banana sandwich. The mayonnaise and banana sandwich may sound odd to us today, but for many Southern families during hard times, it was a practical and filling meal. This unlikely combo provided cheap protein from the mayo and vital nutrients from the bananas. Depression-era mothers would carefully slice ripe bananas lengthwise and layer them on soft white bread, spread with just the right amount of mayonnaise to add a creamy richness that complemented the banana's natural sweetness. If sugar or honey was available, a light sprinkle would make it feel like a special treat. Elvis Presley was known to enjoy a variation of this sandwich, adding peanut butter for extra flavor. The mix of creamy, tangy mayo with the sweet, soft banana created a surprisingly balanced taste. The onion sandwich. The onion sandwich might seem harsh at first, raw onion between slices of bread, but it was a vital sustenance for countless workers in the early 20th century. Onions were cheap, easy to find year-round, and packed with both flavor and nutrients when other foods were scarce. The secret to making it more palatable: thinly slicing the onion, soaking the slices in cold water to take off some of the sharp bite, and patting them dry before layering them on bread spread with butter or drizzled with vinegar. A sprinkle of salt and pepper was all it needed to complete this humble but surprisingly flavorful meal. Coal miners and factory workers often carried these sandwiches in their lunch pails, the strong odor acting as a deterrent to anyone tempted to steal their food. Beyond the taste, the sandwich provided energy through simple carbs and helped fend off winter colds, thanks to the onion's natural antibacterial properties. Bologna sandwich. The bologna sandwich is one of America's most iconic budget meals, loved for its simplicity and affordability. It features thin slices of processed bologna on white bread, often with a dab of yellow mustard. During the Great Depression, when families were struggling, bologna earned the nickname "poor man's steak." It was a way to enjoy a hearty meal without breaking the bank. A single slice of bologna could be stretched across bread to create the illusion of a full meal. The best sandwiches had bologna that was slightly fried, its edges curled up, holding just the right amount of mustard or mayonnaise. It wasn't about fancy ingredients. It was about the small touches that made the sandwich feel special. Some families even scored the edges to stop the bologna from curling up, while others fried it to a crispy perfection. The tuna salad sandwich. When canned tuna became widely available in the early 20th century, it changed the game for budget-conscious eaters. Mixed with mayonnaise and sometimes finely chopped celery or onion, tuna salad turned a small amount of protein into enough to make several sandwiches. During World War II, when meat was rationed, tuna salad sandwiches became a patriotic alternative to beef. Navy wives, in particular, embraced these sandwiches, sometimes adding relish or hard-boiled eggs to stretch the filling even further. Churches and community gatherings often featured tuna salad sandwiches because they were cheap and could feed large groups. More than just a simple meal, the tuna salad sandwich symbolizes community resilience. It shows how, by sharing knowledge and creativity in stretching ingredients, neighborhoods came together to weather difficult times. The fried Spam sandwich. When Spam hit the market in 1937, it quickly became an affordable meat alternative during the Great Depression and wartime rationing. Thinly sliced and fried until crisp-edged, Spam on bread became a reliable staple for working-class families. During World War II, military personnel consumed vast quantities of Spam, and many brought their love for the product back home after the war. Often dressed with mustard or mayonnaise, the fried Spam sandwich's popularity grew far beyond its humble origins. In Hawaii, where Spam became particularly beloved during the military occupation, regional variations of the sandwich developed and continue to be enjoyed today. The egg and sardine sandwich. When protein was scarce but essential for physical labor, the egg and sardine sandwich offered maximum nutrition with minimal ingredients. Canned sardines, mashed with hard-boiled eggs and a splash of vinegar, created a filling meal rich in protein and omega-3 fatty acids. Immigrant communities, drawing from European traditions of fish preservation, embraced this sandwich for its affordability and nutritional value. It was a popular choice for factory workers and miners, fitting easily into lunch pails and providing sustained energy for long, demanding shifts. Some versions added finely chopped onion or pickles for extra flavor when available. The bacon and peanut butter sandwich. When a single strip of bacon had to stretch across an entire meal, the bacon and peanut butter sandwich was born. Often, just one crispy strip of bacon was crumbled and mixed into peanut butter, infusing the spread with smoky, savory flavor. During times of meat rationing, this sandwich allowed families to enjoy the taste of bacon while stretching their limited meat supplies. The salty, smoky bacon paired perfectly with the creamy richness of peanut butter, creating a satisfying combination that went beyond its humble ingredients. On special occasions, some families added honey or molasses to enhance the flavor. The mayonnaise and onion sandwich. The mayonnaise and onion sandwich was a simple yet bold meal that delivered big flavor when other ingredients weren't available. Thinly sliced raw onions, sometimes soaked in water to soften their sharpness, were layered with creamy mayonnaise between slices of bread. This sandwich became a favorite among factory workers, offering an affordable and filling option that provided enough energy for long, physical shifts. It became especially popular with Southern textile mill employees and Midwestern manufacturing workers. Some added a sprinkle of black pepper or paprika when available to enhance the flavor. The bread and milk sandwich is perhaps the most basic and comforting meal, a humble creation that transcended its poverty origins. Slices of bread soaked in sweetened milk, sometimes with a sprinkle of sugar and pressed together, became a simple but satisfying meal when few alternatives existed. During the Depression, parents often served this as a makeshift dessert to children who had no access to traditional sweets. On special occasions, a dash of cinnamon was added, turning this basic sandwich into something almost cake-like. The bread and milk sandwich appears in Depression-era memoirs as both a symbol of hardship and a testament to parental love. How, even during the toughest times, mothers and fathers found a way to turn simple ingredients into a comforting experience for their children. The Monte Cristo sandwich. The Monte Cristo sandwich is a beloved American classic that became widely popular in the mid-20th century. Essentially a ham and cheese sandwich, it's dipped in egg or batter, then pan-fried or deep-fried to crispy perfection. Often seen as a variation of the French croque monsieur, the Monte Cristo can be enjoyed as a savory dish or a mix of savory and sweet. Some versions are dusted with powdered sugar and served with maple syrup or fruit preserves for a delightful contrast of flavors. Its rise in fame is partly due to being a standout menu item at Disneyland's Blue Bayou restaurant, where it became a crowd favorite. The Monte Cristo's combination of rich melted cheese, savory ham, and crispy golden exterior continues to make it a comforting and indulgent treat. Olive loaf sandwiches. Step back to the mid-20th century, when the olive loaf sandwich became a staple in American lunchboxes. This cold cut, made from a blend of ground pork, beef, and green olives, quickly gained popularity for its unique and savory flavor. Assembling the sandwich was simple. Layer slices of olive loaf with creamy mayonnaise or tangy mustard, crisp lettuce, and sometimes cheese, all between fresh slices of bread. It became a picnic and lunchbox favorite, often paired with potato chips or pickles for extra crunch. The olive loaf sandwich is a testament to how processed meats and cold cuts shaped American lunch culture, offering quick, flavorful, and versatile meal options. Ravioli sandwiches. Ravioli sandwiches are an unconventional yet fun twist on Italian cuisine, combining the beloved flavors of ravioli with the convenience of a sandwich. Likely emerging in response to the popularity of canned ravioli introduced by Chef Boyardee in the 1930s, these sandwiches quickly gained a following. The concept is simple. Place canned ravioli, filled with either meat or cheese, between slices of bread. To elevate the experience, the sandwich is often toasted or grilled, creating a satisfying contrast between the soft ravioli filling and crispy bread. Sometimes referred to as Italian sloppy joes or ravioli heroes, these sandwiches became especially popular among budget-conscious college students and anyone seeking a quick, hearty meal that blends comforting Italian flavors with the portability of a sandwich. Which sandwich brings back the most nostalgic memories for you? Tell us how it connects to your past. Creamed corn sandwich. The creamed corn sandwich is a nostalgic comfort food that takes us back to simpler times. This humble sandwich features creamed corn spread generously on buttered bread, offering a creamy and slightly sweet taste that provides comfort when ingredients were limited. The combination of the creamy corn and soft bread makes for a satisfying, hearty meal. Popular during times of scarcity, it reflects an era when homemade simplicity was treasured. The creamed corn sandwich continues to evoke memories of classic American comfort food, offering a taste of a bygone era that many still enjoy for its warm, familiar flavors. Macaroni and cheese loaf sandwich. Take a step back to mid-20th century America, where comfort food took on a creative new form. The macaroni and cheese loaf sandwich. This unique creation featured slices of macaroni and cheese loaf, a savory blend of pasta and ham shaped into a loaf, layered between slices of bread, often with mustard or mayonnaise for added flavor. Debuting in the 1950s, this sandwich quickly became a distinctive part of the American lunch repertoire. Families gathered around tables, savoring this peculiar yet beloved dish, often served with chips or pickles for an extra crunch. The macaroni and cheese loaf sandwich offered a practical way to enjoy the hearty taste of macaroni and cheese in a more portable, sandwich-friendly format. Deviled ham sandwiches. Deviled ham sandwiches became a popular choice in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, offering a flavorful, easy-to-make lunch. Deviled ham is made by grinding ham and mixing it with zesty spices like hot sauce, cayenne pepper, or mustard, giving it a kick of flavor. The term deviled refers to the practice of adding spicy seasonings to food, a tradition that dates back to the 18th century. In 1868, the William Underwood Company in Boston began producing canned deviled ham, which became famous for its long shelf life and its distinctive devil logo, one of the oldest food trademarks in the U.S. To make a deviled ham sandwich, simply mix ground ham with mayonnaise, mustard, and spices, then spread the mixture onto slices of bread. For added texture and flavor, you can include lettuce or pickles. The chicken salad sandwich. The chicken salad sandwich was born from necessity, a way to stretch the meat from a single chicken to feed a family for days. After a hearty Sunday dinner and using leftovers for Monday's soup, any remaining chicken was finely chopped and mixed with mayonnaise to create a filling for multiple sandwiches. During the Depression and wartime, cooks added diced celery, apples, or hard-boiled eggs to further stretch the mixture. The finer the chicken was chopped, the further it would go, creating a meal that provided protein and satisfaction without waste. These sandwiches were often served at church socials, with the crusts removed and cut into triangles, transforming everyday food into something special for little cost. Do you think these old-school sandwiches could make a comeback? Why or why not? We want to hear your thoughts. The mock chicken sandwich. When real chicken was out of reach, creative cooks invented the mock chicken sandwich, a clever substitute made from cheaper ingredients. Typically, coarsely ground bologna or other inexpensive processed meats were mixed with cracker crumbs and seasonings to mimic the texture and flavor of chicken salad. During wartime meat rationing, this sandwich became a staple in factory cafeterias and school lunchrooms. The secret to its convincing flavor was in the seasoning: sage, celery, salt, and sometimes a drop of yellow food coloring to give it the same buttery color as chicken salad. Some variations even used cooked beans as the base instead of meat. The ham and cheese sandwich. While the ham and cheese sandwich is now a classic, it originally came from the careful management of precious resources. Deli ham, sliced paper thin, and a single slice of processed cheese could be stretched across multiple sandwiches, feeding a family with minimal ingredients. During the Depression, mothers often used just one slice of each to make sandwiches for the whole family, sometimes adding lettuce or mayonnaise to bulk it up. This simple combination provided a complete source of protein when meat alone was too expensive to have in large quantities. Some families even collected cheese rinds to melt into a spread, making it go further than regular sliced cheese. The chicken liver sandwich. When every part of the chicken had to be used, the chicken liver sandwich became a cost-effective and nutritious solution. Cooked and finely chopped with onions, then mixed with a little mayonnaise, chicken livers created rich, iron-packed sandwiches that were both filling and affordable. Rural families, especially those who raised their own chickens, relied on these sandwiches to ensure nothing went to waste. Some added hard-boiled eggs or relish to enhance the flavor, making it both economical and highly nutritious. Farm children often carried these sandwiches in their lunch pails, benefiting from the concentrated nutrition during their growing years. The anchovy paste sandwich. The anchovy paste sandwich became a working-class staple during tough times, where even a small tube of anchovy paste could stretch across multiple meals. Spread thinly on buttered bread, sometimes with sliced hard-boiled egg when available, it provided intense flavor and omega-3 fatty acids. Immigrant communities, particularly those from Mediterranean regions, embraced this sandwich, maintaining food traditions from their homelands despite poverty. The strong, savory flavor of anchovy paste ensured satisfaction even when ingredients were limited. Some added thin-sliced onion or a squeeze of lemon juice when possible to enhance the taste. Curried sardine salad sandwiches. Curried sardine salad sandwiches offer a bold, zesty combination of sardines and curry powder that makes for a truly extraordinary meal. Popular in mid-20th century America, especially after World War II, canned sardines became a budget-friendly staple. The unique recipe blends mashed sardines with aromatic curry powder, creamy mayonnaise, tangy lemon juice, and crunchy chopped celery, creating a flavorful spread with great texture. Spread this delicious mixture generously on your favorite bread and add fresh lettuce or cucumber slices for a satisfying crunch that complements the creamy filling. In England, variations might include chopped apples or raisins for a hint of sweetness, while American versions often feature hard-boiled eggs or capers for an extra punch of flavor. This sandwich is a perfect balance of savory, tangy, and crunchy, making it a memorable meal option. The lard sandwich. The lard sandwich is perhaps the most humble of all poor man's meals, a stark symbol of bare-bones sustenance. Simply spread rendered animal fat between two slices of bread, and you have a filling meal that provided essential calories when nothing else was available. In Appalachian regions and among rural families, This simple sandwich was a quick source of energy, often enhanced with a sprinkle of salt for a savory option or sugar for something sweeter. While it wasn't nutritionally balanced, the lard sandwich kept people going. Those who had access to home-rendered lard often claimed it had a superior flavor compared to store-bought varieties. On special occasions, families might add a thin layer of molasses for a sweet twist. This sandwich's high-calorie content made it especially popular with physical laborers, providing them with the energy needed to power through demanding workdays. The Sloppy Joe. The Sloppy Joe is a classic American sandwich that became a household favorite in the mid-20th century, made with ground beef, onions, tomato sauce or ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and a blend of seasonings. This messy, flavorful sandwich is served on a hamburger bun. The origins of the Sloppy Joe are a subject of debate. Some claim it was created by a bar owner in Havana, Cuba in 1917, while others trace it back to Sioux City, Iowa in the 1930s. By the 1940s, Sloppy Joes were firmly established as a popular sandwich across the United States. These sandwiches not only reflect the culinary trends of their time, but also offer a glimpse into the flavors and preferences that helped shape mid-20th century American cuisine. Corned beef tongue sandwich. For those willing to step outside the usual, the corned beef tongue sandwich offers a truly unique flavor experience. Made with slices of seasoned, slow-cooked corned beef tongue, this sandwich delivers a distinctive taste and tender texture that's unlike anything else. Once layered between slices of fresh bread, it becomes a hearty, memorable meal. This sandwich reflects a time when creativity and resourcefulness in the kitchen were essential, turning every part of the animal into something delicious. Spam and pineapple sandwiches. Spam and pineapple sandwiches capture a uniquely American love for sweet and savory flavors, a combination that gained huge popularity during World War II. Spam, first introduced to the U.S. military in 1937, quickly became a household staple. This sandwich pairs crispy fried slices of Spam with sweet, slightly caramelized pineapple rings, layered between toasted bread for a perfect flavor contrast. Often finished with a swipe of mayonnaise or a slice of cheese, it reflects the growing Hawaiian influence on American cuisine, especially after Hawaii became a state in 1959. Victory Sandwich. The Victory Sandwich stands as a powerful symbol of post-war optimism and kitchen ingenuity. Born from an era when every ingredient counted, it was traditionally made with buttered bread, a modest smear of mustard or butter, and whatever cold cuts or vegetables were available. Simple, hearty, and satisfying, it became a culinary emblem of triumph over hardship. Today, chefs honor the Victory Sandwich's humble roots by reinventing it with artisanal spreads, pickled vegetables, and gourmet twists, blending old-world resourcefulness with modern flavors. The Bread and Butter Sandwich. The bread and butter sandwich is the epitome of simplicity, especially during tough times. Just 2 slices of bread with a layer of butter, nothing more. But this humble sandwich told a story of resilience and making do with what little was available. During periods of economic struggle, it wasn't uncommon for families to rely on this as a full meal. The secret to making it special? It was all in the small details. Butter softened just right, so it spread easily, a sprinkle of salt to bring out the flavor, or a gentle toasting that melted the butter into the bread. During wartime rationing, kids often found these in their school lunches. Some parents even got creative, cutting the sandwiches into fun shapes or pressing patterns into the butter to give it a little extra love. The Ketchup Sandwich. When the pantry was bare, the ketchup sandwich became a last resort meal that somehow won the hearts of children. Just 2 slices of bread with ketchup spread between them. This sandwich was a symbol of making do with what little was available. During the Great Depression, ketchup provided flavor and a hint of nutrition from tomatoes when fresh vegetables were out of reach. To make it feel like more of a meal, parents would sometimes toast the bread, and a sprinkle of sugar was added to sweeten the ketchup, turning it into a near dessert. In some school cafeterias during the 1930s, this was even served to kids. Depression-era children grew up with these sandwiches, and many carried on the tradition even as times improved. The cucumber sandwich. While we often associate cucumber sandwiches with fancy afternoon tea, they actually began as humble fare during tougher times. Thin slices of cucumber between two pieces of bread provided hydration and a cooling refreshment for workers during hot weather, especially when meat was too expensive. During the Great Depression, families made these sandwiches using fresh garden cucumbers in the summer, adding a light spread of butter and a pinch of salt. The cool, crisp cucumber was a welcome treat, particularly for farm workers in the heat. Some added a dash of dill or vinegar when available, elevating the flavor. Unlike many poor man's sandwiches that were meant to fill the stomach, the cucumber sandwich offered something different. It provided psychological refreshment, a rare moment of eating something light and fresh when most meals were heavy and starchy. The tomato sandwich. The tomato sandwich is a celebration of summer's bounty, enjoyed when garden-grown tomatoes are at their peak. Sliced thick and placed between two pieces of bread with a sprinkle of salt and pepper, this simple meal cost almost nothing but provided a seasonal joy that was eagerly anticipated each year. Southern families often added a light spread of mayonnaise, while Midwestern versions were made with butter. The key to a perfect tomato sandwich. Using tomatoes still warm from the sun, their juices soaking slightly into the bread, creating a messy yet glorious experience. During peak garden season, many would eat this sandwich daily until the first frost signaled the end of tomato availability. Which of these forgotten sandwiches would you love to try today? Let us know your favorite. The peanut butter and pickle sandwich. The peanut butter and pickle sandwich may sound odd, but it was a clever and surprisingly delicious creation during tough times. The creamy peanut butter and tangy, crunchy pickles provided a perfect balance of flavors, making it a satisfying option when resources were limited. Depression-era cooks discovered that the sharp acidity of dill pickles cut through the richness of peanut butter in a way that worked better than expected. In some regions, sweet pickles made their way into the mix, especially where families did their own canning. The combination of textures, smooth peanut butter with crisp, crunchy pickles, offered variety in a diet that often lacked excitement. This sandwich was a staple through the 1950s, particularly in rural areas where both ingredients were easy to find, either through home canning or as affordable pantry items. Even as times improved, many Depression-era children carried the flavors of their childhood into adulthood, keeping the peanut butter and pickle sandwich as a nostalgic connection to their past. Which of these forgotten dinners brought back memories for you, or maybe surprised you? Food tells our stories, and we'd love to hear yours in the comments. If you enjoyed this nostalgic trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you won't miss the next serving of vintage goodness. Thanks for watching.